Hello, been a little while, been a month I think since I last did a video, although it's been a bit longer since I did a review, since the last thing was that record store day thing. But I'm here today with a review, and to be honest I should probably start getting more back into the swing of doing these things, because I keep going through like spells where I'll do a video or two and then I'll disappear for 6 months and then I'll come back. So I should really get back into a more consistent thing of reviews. But hey, whether I do or not is another matter. But today we are going to talk about an album, and it's quite a famous album. It's this one. It's AM by Arctic Monkeys, their 5th studio album, released in 2013, released the 9th of September 2013. This album is 10 years old this year, which is mind-blowing. Makes me feel old. I mean, I can remember like it was yesterday when this album came out, and now it's nearly 10-year-old. What is life? Anyway, this is the vinyl. That is the front cover. This is the only version I own of this album. Front cover, back cover, and gatefold. I've always liked that picture of the band. It looks very sort of Beatles-esque, I think. Very 1960s looking. The actual record itself I won't bother getting out because it's just a black sleeve. But yeah. The artwork for this, to be honest, I've never been massively keen on it. I've never really looked at this artwork and thought, oh, that's a masterpiece. I love that album cover. But thankfully, the contents of the album is much better than the cover, in my personal opinion. Anyway, I have my iPad full of facts and statistics, although there's not really any statistics, it's just full of facts. So yes, I'm going to ramble on now all about this album. Won't that be exciting? Well, you're here to watch it for some reason. Anyway, like I say, it came out 9th of September 2013. 10 years. 10 years. So I'll have been what back then? I'll have been... How old am I now? I'm 23, so I must have been... I'm not 23, I'm 25. So I must have been 15 when this album came out. Who to be a 15-year-old boy again? It says at the ripe old age of 25. So yeah, I was still in school, year 11, I'll be, year 10, year 11, something like that. Anyway, the sessions for this album, it was recorded between August 2012 until June 2013. So it went on for nearly a year, the recording process of this album. And it was recorded entirely in LA. I believe this was the period when the band were living in LA. And yeah, they just recorded the whole thing there. With the exception of Are You Mine, which is a bit of a weird one because although it's on this album, it's kind of separate. I'll get to that in a sec. But as usual, this album is produced by James Ford. James Ford has produced everything the Arctic Monkeys have done since Favourite Worst Nightmare. He's produced The Last Shadow Puppets. I think he's even in The Last Shadow Puppets, but yeah. It's also got production credits for Ross Orton. Couldn't tell you anything about Ross Orton other than he has co-produced this album alongside James Ford. There was a maths teacher called Mr. Orton at my school. Just thought I'd share that with the group. Anyway, Alex Turner has claimed that the band wanted to create a more of a studio album here compared to the previous album, Suck It and See. I'm going to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what he means by that. So if anyone does, please let me know. What I would assume he means is Suck It and See is designed much more to be played live. That's its entire purpose. Whereas this album is more designed to be listened to and experienced, and it's just like more of a like a piece of art, I suppose. Now to do so, to get this more studio album feel, the band incorporated more instruments, including a far-out instrument called the piano. Oh, it's far-out stuff, that. But yeah, up until this point, they've predominantly just been guitars, bass, drums. But they started bringing in more stuff now, the piano, and let me tell you, the piano has been a very controversial thing in the Arctic Monkeys fan base since this album came out. There'll be people out there who will claim this is the last good album they made. It's been 10 years of utter crap since this came out. I'm not of that opinion, but there we go. But yeah, they introduced more eclectic instruments like a piano. They have organs. There's a vintage drum machine, amongst other things. Yeah. And in terms of genre, obviously it's rock and roll and psychedelic rock and indie rock and stuff like that. But this album sees the band attempting a bit of hip-hop, which obviously 2013 contemporary music then and now really is hip-hop. It's not my cup of tea, but Alex Turner doesn't start rapping or anything on this album, because if he was rapping I wouldn't be listening to it. and probably talking about it. But it's more in the musicianship where the hip hop comes with the bass and stuff, which I will get into in the track by track review. But yeah, hip hop was a big influence on this album. It's sort of like, there's not many albums out there where rock and roll and hip hop have tried to combine into one thing, and if they have, it hasn't really worked. But here we are, how Arctic Monkeys doing it, and doing it very well, I might add. So thematically, that's a cool word, that, thematically. Thematically, the album here, it focuses on the frustration surrounded by tainted romance, sex and loneliness. Ah, what a good theme. A theme that Alex Turner must be very familiar with. I can imagine it being a very lonely place, Fame, and the type of people you will attract with tainted romance and stuff. But hey, we've all experienced loneliness and tainted romance, and we've all experienced sex. Well, most of us. But yeah, so the themes of this, it is kind of, it's a very relatable album. This, the lyrics, yeah. It's just very relatable. Anyway, Josh Homme, I think is how you pronounce his name, of Queens of the Stone Ages, a band that evidently I do not listen to because I can't pronounce his name. I don't know, maybe I can. Anyway, he features on this album doing some guest backing vocals on Knee Socks. So yeah, that's good for him. As I say, the album itself is called AM. This was inspired by a 1985 Velvet Underground compilation entitled VU. So yeah, Velvet Underground there being very inspirational is Lou Reed. Anyway, upon its release, this album became the band's biggest album to date, topping the UK charts in its first week and shifting 157,000 copies, which is a lot. I think these days, it's sold over 1.5 million copies here in the UK, which, yeah, that's not bad going. It was one of the biggest selling vinyl albums as well of the 2010s. So yeah, it is without doubt the band's biggest album. Critically, the album received critical acclaim, and Rolling Stone magazine has even ranked it at 346 on their 2020 list of the 500 greatest albums of all time. Yeah, so anyway, as I said before, Are You Mine is a bit different here because that was recorded in 2012 at some point, before the actual sessions for this album began, and it was originally just supposed to be a standalone single. But then at some point they decided to add it onto this album. So because it got added onto this album, it technically did become the lead single, despite the fact it wasn't recorded in the sessions for this album. It was just supposed to be a standalone thing. I'm pretty sure what I've heard before with Suck It and See, it's the only time the band, when they were touring with the album, they got bored of it. And because they were bored with Suck It and See, they decided to make a new song so they could do it on tour, basically, and that's what Are You Mine was supposed to be. And then they've obviously decided to put it on here. So yeah, like I say, it was never intended to be on here, but because it went on, it ended up being the lead single. But following on from this, there were 5 singles, which were Do I Wanna Know, Why Do You Wanna Call Me When You're High, One for the Road, Arabella, and Snap Out of It. So there's 12 tracks on this album, 6 of them were singles, although 2 of them were radio-only singles, but they're still singles. So yeah, when half your album can be singles, it kind of shows you the quality of it. So yeah, like I say, this is the band's biggest selling album to date, and it's quite a controversial one in some ways because this album brought a lot of people into Arctic Monkeys. It was a lot of people's first sort of like proper experience of them, and then they went back and listened to the other stuff. But a lot of the people who were fans beforehand, like of the earlier stuff, will complain that this is where they sort of sold out. They went mainstream, they stopped being indie, and they wanted to be like mainstream pop stars. If you're that uptight about your music, then fair enough, but you're missing out on good stuff like this. The early stuff, which I will review at some point, is good, but I don't know, I just kind of prefer this. Hey ho. Anyway, I think that's all I've got to say. So we shall dive into the track-by-track review. As I say, there are 12 tracks on this album, 12 wonderful tracks for the most part. And it opens with a banger, Do I Wanna Know? This is probably Arctic Monkeys' most famous song. Although, is it their most famous? Probably is. Although something like 505 and Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor is obviously big. But I would say, I'm going to put my neck on the line and say that it is their biggest song to date. But that riff, it's iconic, isn't it? It's just ding-ding-ding, It's iconic. As soon as you hear it, you know what it is. And at the very start of the song, I assume, like I said before, there's a vintage drum machine getting used. I'm assuming that's it in use. I may be doing Matt Helders a disservice there, but I think it's a drum machine, those drums at the start. Again, I might be wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong, please do. But yeah, nice little bit of a drum machine, I think. The vocals on this song are wonderful, but the harmonies, this is going to be a common theme with every track on this album. The harmonies on this song are top notch, brilliant. I think the harmonies, I'm assuming Alex Turner is also doing harmonies, along with Matt Helders and Nick, well, I've forgotten his second name, the bassist Nick. Some fan you are. Yeah, the three of them doing harmonies, it's great. This song itself, it peaked at number 11 on the UK singles chart, which I think was their highest charting single since Fluorescent Adolescence, I think. Later singles from this album would later peak higher than this, as I shall get to later on. It's probably, like I said, one of the band's most famous tunes. It's got like 1 billion views on YouTube, the music video for this kind of goes to show. It's one of them songs you can be out on a Saturday night and you'll hear this play in a pub somewhere, because it's just, I think what's good about it is because it's a simple song, and that's what's good. Like when songs are simple, it's just a simple catchy pop song really. This great song, the riff's great. Anyway, after that second track, I should have said that although Are You Mine was technically the lead single, the first actual single from the album was Do I Want to Know. So yeah. Anyway, track 2 is Are You Mine. Again, great riff. The riff comes from Nick O'Malley. There we go, I've got his name written down. Yeah, bass comes from him. I believe he's got co-writing credits on this. It's credited to him and Alex Turner. Yeah, it's a proper good rocker, this. I believe it's what they close their shows with, most gigs these days. I'm seeing them next week, actually, in Manchester. So, yeah, that'll be good. That'll be very good. Very excited. I've never seen Arctic Monkeys live before. They're like top of my bucket list now to see. I'm ashamed that I haven't seen them live yet. But yeah, really excited to see them. Again, the vocals on this are fantastic. So are the harmonies. Yeah, again, one of the band's most famous tunes. It's up there with Do I Want to Know, Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor, etc, etc. Yeah, Are You Mine is just a good song, really. Right, track 3, One for the Road. So the harmonies on this, they're very good. And I've always felt this song, with its harmonies, it kind of reminds, or its backing vocals, it kind of reminds me of Sympathy for the Devil by the Rolling Stones. Not in the actual sound of it or its production, it's just the sort of, the woo-woos. It's sort of, kind of Sympathy for the Devil-esque. Yeah, whether that's intentional or not, I don't know, but it's maybe just me that thinks that. It's the first track on the album as well where you can really hear the hip-hop sort of influence. Especially the bit where it's Alex Turner singing, So We All Go Back to Yours, and you sit and talk to me on the floor. There's no need to show me around, baby, I feel like I've been here before. Yeah, that's very hip-hop. It's like if someone started rapping on top of that, it wouldn't sound out of place. A rap on there, but yeah, it's good. It's compared to the 2 songs before it, it's a bit less heavy. I wouldn't call it a ballad or anything like that, but it is less heavy. And to be honest, I've never massively cared for this song. I wouldn't skip it. Once upon a time I would have done, but these days I wouldn't skip it. But yeah, it's decent enough. I mean, I just don't care massively for it. It was a single. I don't know if I'd have personally chose it as a single if I'd been in the band, but yeah, there we go. Anyway, track 4 is Arabella. Arabella. Yeah, again, love this song. It's a great song. Whenever I hear this song now, I always think of my mate's dog, George. George, hi George, if you're watching. Probably not. His dog's called Arabella. I've never actually asked him. I've just always assumed that he chose the name based off this song. Yeah, he maybe didn't. He maybe just likes the name. But I've always made the assumption that he's this is the song that's inspired his dog. Anyway, yeah, this song, it has kind of Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin kind of vibes, especially in the chorus. Yeah, there's also hip-hop vibes in it, and let's be honest, Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin are about as far from hip-hop as you can get. But on the verses, there is sort of the hip-hop kind of vibe. It's a bit more bassy. Again, wonderful harmonies throughout this song. It's also pretty much an iconic Arctic Monkeys song. It's a staple of their live sets. It's pretty well known. Most tracks on this album are pretty well known. I mean, every track so far, these first four, they've all been singles. So, kind of shows the quality of an album when you can release so many singles from it. But yeah, Arabella, great song. I've always loved the line, Arabella's got a 70s head, but she's a modern lover. I don't know what it is about it. I've just always really, really enjoyed that lyric. Right, track 5 is I Want It All. I always feel this song is just like a continuation of Arabella, which is probably what it's supposed to be because they do kind of flow into each other. Yeah, I love the vocals on this one as well, and I especially love that lyric, leave me listening to the Stones, 2,000 light years from home. Very, very clever, and if you're a Stones fan like me, it's like, what a great lyric. I might have used that quite a few times over the years. But yeah, great song. Great lyric, sorry. But the song itself, it's never been one of my favourites. It's the first track on the album that hasn't been a single. And yeah, there's probably a reason for that. It's just a bit more, it's not very single worthy. But it's a decent enough tune. It's just never been one of my favourites. But that lyric itself, very good. Right, track 6. So we reached the part of the album now where it's time to slow it down, chill everything out, and we're coming in with the ballads. And the first of these ballads is Number One Party Anthem, which for me is a contender for my favourite on the album. I'm going to say that 4 times in this video. That this is the first time I'm saying it. But yeah, this is an absolutely brilliant ballad. Alex Turner is absolutely brilliant at songs like this. Wonderful. Number One Party Anthem. Great. It's perfectly placed on the album here as well. Like, up until this point, they've all been pretty heavy songs. I know One for the Road isn't quite as heavy, but they've all been like rockers or hip-hop kind of songs, but this kind of slows it right down to a ballad, and it's like a breather. It's giving yourself a break, which is very useful, actually. I've always felt as well with this song that it could easily have been a single. Yeah, in terms of singles, obviously I said One for the Road was a single. I personally think this would have been a better single than One for the Road because I think it's a better song. The vocals here, they're absolutely fabulous, and the guitar on this song, it's very nice. It's quite subtle, but yeah, good tune. As is the next track, track 7, Mad Sounds. So it's story time. This is the song that really, really got me into Arctic Monkeys, to be honest. Once upon a time, I used to say this was my favourite Arctic Monkeys song. I don't say that anymore, but once upon a day I did. I can still tell you, the first time I ever heard this, I was driving in my car along the M6. Unless you know the area, when you're coming up through Shap in Cumbria, and you're going along through the hills, beautiful stretch of the motorway. It was November time, I think, and a few years ago now, and the sun was just setting down below the hills, and as the sun was setting, I was driving along. It was a lovely day, it was blue skies and everything. This song came on. It's the first time I heard it, and my god, it was like, oh, brilliant. And yeah, it just sort of started my love for this album and this band, I suppose. But yeah, like I say, it's another ballad. And it's a very, very strong contender for my favourite on the album. Once Upon a Time, like I said, this was my favourite Arctic Monkeys song. It's not anymore, but once upon a time it was. The guitar, especially in the intro, it reminds me somewhat of the Velvet Underground and their tune, Pale Blue Eyes. Lyrically, it's not the same, but just melodically, especially at the start, it's just like, just the way the guitars sound, and it does sound very similar, in my opinion at least, to Pale Blue Eyes. Brilliant song. So because of that, it has kind of a 60s vibe to it, this song. The ooh la la bit. What a brilliant thing that is. That was the bit of the song that really, really hooked me, that ooh la la la. It's just beautiful. And also there is organ throughout this song. It's very subtle, but it's very nice. The song is all the better for it. And the harmonies when Alex Turner comes back in at the end singing the vocal, and the rest of the band are doing the ooh la la la. Brilliant. It's just a joyful song. It's a joyful listen. Mad sounds, brilliant song. Alright, after that we're finished with the ballads and we're back into the more upbeat, rockier songs. Track 8, Fireside. I've never massively cared for this song. I normally skip the tune if I'm being honest, and the vocals are decent enough, but yeah, I've never cared for it. I believe there's quite a decent nightclub in Glasgow named after this song, but I've never been. But the song itself, I mean, the nightclub's maybe amazing, but the song itself, nah, I don't really care for it. So that's all I'm going to say about that, because track 9 is Why Do You Only Call Me When You're High. We're back into single territory here. Love this song. The bass line is fab. The bass really, really does drive this song. The hip-hop vibes are very, very clear on this song, especially because, you know, it's very bass driven. This song reached number 8 on the singles charts. It's the highest charting single of this album. And yeah, again, it's a very, very famous Arctic Monkeys song. It's probably one of their most famous. It's a common trend I keep saying about this album. But yeah, great song. One of the band's biggest songs, like I say. It's a staple of their live sets. I just really like this song. I can't wait to see it live. Why do you want to call me when you're high? Hi, why do you want to call me when you're high? Right. After that, track 10, Snap Out of It. This is my third contender for my favourite song on this album. Yeah, it's kind of, a lot of it's just sort of like drums and bass, and it's just, yeah, it's really catchy. I love the vocals and the harmonies, you know, when Alex Turner's going snap out of it, and then Matt Helders, I assume, on the backing vocals, he's going snap out of it. Sorry. Yeah, love the vocals and the harmonies. Again, one of their biggest songs. It's a very, very famous song. Again, it was a single, driven by the bass. Yeah, it was the final single released from the album. Once they put this out as a single, I think they probably decided, right, we've had 6 singles off this now, we should probably call it a day. But yeah, it's a great song. Lyrically, very, very good. Maybe I should pay more attention to its lyrics and snap myself out of things. But yeah, things that I have engaged in the past. Not going into all that here though, because I want to talk about the next track. That's track 11, Knee Socks. I've never cared for this song, despite the fact that it's quite a famous song. And it's normally done live in most of the sets, but I've never cared for it. Bass pretty much sort of drives this song, although there is a bit of guitar, a bit of a riff in the intro, but lyrics are decent and the harmonies are good, as I keep saying. But normally, I would skip this song. I don't care for Knee Socks. Unlike the next track, which is the closing track, I Wanna Be Yours, back with the slower ballads to close the album. Wonderful song. And if you've kept count, this is my 4th and final contender for my favourite song on the album. This is based off a poem, a 1982 poem by John Cooper Clarke, which Alex Turner really liked, and I believe he contacted John Cooper Clarke to see if he could make it into a song. He did. Now, the lyrics on this, they're not exactly the same as the poem, because obviously when you add a melody and music and stuff, it doesn't quite work the same, read the same. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how famous the poem was before this song, but this song has made it bloody famous. Harmonies on this song are very fab. It's just a common trend, really. Musicianship's also fab, and it's just a great way to close the album. It's a great love song, really. Just kind of says everything. Just when you really like someone and you just want to be theirs. I just want to be yours. Yeah, but that is it. That is the closing track of AM. Wonderful way to close it. So, AM, Arctic Monkeys' 5th album, their most famous, their biggest album, 10 years old this year, if you can believe it. What is there to say? It's a great album. Most people love it, and people who don't love it are either deaf or they're trying to be edgy, you know what I mean? But yeah, if you've never heard this album, seriously give it a listen. It is a modern masterpiece. I would go as far as to say that it is the sort of album that I can guarantee you in 50 years time people will still be listening to this, which you can't say about a lot of albums that come out that are mainstream, like big albums these days, that they'll still probably be listening to in 50 years time. Your grandkids will probably be listening to this. I hope mine are. Well, I'll be making sure they are. Got to do that with my kids first. I have to have kids first. But anyway, yeah, it is one of those albums, and I've reviewed The Car, so if you want to see the latest album from last year, if you want to see that, find that on my channel. I will review their other albums, and Tranquility Base, I know that came after this and a lot of people hated that album. Personally, I really like it, but I'll review that separately another day. And the ones that came before it, I know it's kind of like everyone has their favourite Arctic Monkeys album, their favourite era, and for a lot of people they will go this, and if you pick this one you tend to get a bit of a slack for it because you're like, you're one of them. Anyway, I'm rambling on, so I'm going to wrap this video up now and say thank you very much for watching, and I will see you very soon. I'll definitely be seeing you very soon for a review of Noel Gallagher's new album, Council Skies, which I'm very excited for. But I might do more videos before then. Like I say, I want to get into a more regular sort of uploading thing. So has anyone got any requests? If you want to request a review, you can suggest it, and I might do it, I might not, I can't guarantee anything. But yeah, anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope everyone's well, have a good day, etc., night, whenever you're watching this. Stay groovy, and I'll see you when I see you. Ta-ra!